Hey everybody, Teri Wellbrock here, just taking a second before today's interview to say hello and talk about a couple of things. One, so proud of my third and youngest child who just passed her written exam for her private pilot license at 18. Very, very cool. Just super proud of her. So send her lots of good vibes and prayers as she gets ready to do her FAA check ride. And then heads to college to study aviation science to become a pilot. So proud of all three of my kids, and just super proud right now in this moment of our kiddo. I've been utilizing my vibration plate and to help with inflammation, and oh my gosh, what a world of difference it's making. So I'm going to put a link in show notes of the one I'm utilizing. So be sure to go read the reviews, check it out. So phenomenal for getting that lymph moving and again helping with inflammation. So if you're struggling with that and just haven't found the thing that clicks for you, go check it out. Be sure to talk to your medical practitioner before starting anything. I have to say that. The other thing that I've been utilizing, I saw a movie on earthing. Someone had brought to my attention and said, you need to go watch this movie. So I did. I forget what streaming channel it was on, but I found it. And so I've been going out every day and putting my hand on, we have these two beautiful, big, tall, ginormous pine trees in our backyard. So I put my hand on the one I can reach while I stand in the grass in my bare feet. Yesterday I did some meditation lying on my back in the grass. And again, just helping with inflammation. And the third thing I did yesterday was met with Laura Shofroth, who's here on Hilton Head Island. And she had joined me on the Healers of Hilton Head series. So if you go to my website and go to teriwellbrock.com and click on the link that says Healers of Hilton Head, you can find that conversation I had with Laura. But I feel so blessed that she's here on the other end of the island from me, but it's only about a 20-minute drive. So that's been really cool to be able to meet with these beautiful healing souls. I love this island for its healing energy. It's just amazing. All right, well, here's another beautiful conversation with someone who's joined me once before on the show, and we talk about healing and so much more. Enjoy. Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I am your host, Teri Wellbrock, back from my 2-month hiatus and very excited to have another beautiful guest with me who's joined me once before on the show, Diana Raab, PhD, and she is memoirist, poet, essayist, thought leader, and speaker. And I just dropped my pen. I'm going to go down and get it. Hold on one second. All right, I'm back. So welcome, Diana.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Teri. It's just an honor to be part of the beginning of your next chapter.
Oh, thank you so much. I said 2024 is going to be a great year. And I know for you, you just had a book launch yesterday, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's exciting. A memoir, Hummingbird, Messages from My Ancestors. And I told you before I hit record, I was online reading through the reviews and just, oh my gosh, I love reading those types of reviews where it's just like someone wrote, I'm not a big memoir reader, and I was a little hesitant, but
I read that one.
And it was like, wow. And so I love that somebody gives a memoir a chance and then they're like blown away. And so, yeah. So talk to us about really, I guess, the inspiration behind this book.
Sure. Well, this is my 14th book. I mainly write memoirs and poetry. And this year I turned 70. So this is kind of a celebration of my 70th year. As I was writing, the inspiration behind it, I'll start with answering your question instead of rambling here, was that it was written during the pandemic when a hummingbird visited my flowers outside my writing studio every single day. And I figured, there's a message in this, and the pandemic really slowed me down. So I got a chance to, and I always had a picture of my grandmother who died when I was 10 on my desk. And I came to realize that the hummingbird was my grandmother visiting me. And I would start talking to the hummingbird and I'd be getting answers. And at the time, I was fighting my second cancer diagnosis, and the doctors wanted me to start treatment, and something inside me intuitively just said, no, no, just do your, integrative medicine, follow the path that you have been following for the past 17 years. And I asked grandma, and she said, listen to your intuition. I've told you always to listen to your heart. And so it became this dialogue that we had on a regular basis. And then I realized my father started visiting me in the form of a different bird. And so I thought, you know what, during this time of unrest, so much was happening in the universe that I thought we all needed, myself in particular, I needed to search for wisdom that was not present at my fingertips. And I just thought I would go out into the ethers and find out what that wisdom was. And after I was reading about hummingbirds, I learned a lot about hummingbirds. My mother was obsessed with hummingbirds, but I found that the Native Americans believe that they are connected to heaven and that they can bring messages. As butterflies can, people can visit you who have passed in different forms. I mean, so my book is really about paying attention to those visitors and just honoring their wisdoms.
Yes.
And
Oh my gosh, you kind of teared me up a little bit because see, I know we hear a lot about cardinals. And I lived in Ohio, and the cardinal was the state bird, so we always had a lot of them around when
yeah,
I lived in Ohio.
yeah,
And soon after my dad had passed, I saw this red cardinal that would sit in the tree and just sing and sing and sing and sing and sing. So I would sometimes do laps around our pool in our backyard just to get my steps in and get some movement while I was working in the day, just go out for
sure.
10 minutes, move. And
Yeah,
this cardinal would just sing, sing, sing to me. So I started saying, "Hi, Dad," and talking to him. And so one day I saw the cardinal. At the time, we had our third child, our youngest, had a trampoline in the backyard, one of those with the net around it. And I saw this cardinal, this bright red cardinal, sitting in the middle of the trampoline. And I was like, what the heck is that cardinal doing? So after, I did whatever I was doing from my office, and I walked outside and was doing my laps. And I noticed something lying in the middle of the trampoline. Now I find hearts everywhere. Like I find
oh,
hearts in the clouds and hearts and wads of gum on the sidewalk and hearts and rocks. I just find hearts. And I looked closely, and I even have a whole thing on Facebook. I wrote a little story about it. There was a leaf, I guess, or something that was a perfectly shaped heart that this cardinal had left in the middle of the trampoline. And so I was like, well, thanks, Dad. So to me, I totally relate with what you're talking about. Yes, I agree.
yeah. So I'm happy that it resonated with you in that way, and because you're paying attention, So I guess what I'm trying to tell people is pay attention, because I think we receive messages all the time. We just don't always pay attention to them. I lost my dog a little bit over a year ago. I had a 17-year-old Maltese, and I was just, after he passed, I was devastated. I had 3 children that are grown and 6 grandchildren. And so I was talking to him and saying, please come back in whatever way. I miss you. And I got a new puppy, and I swear he's got the same birthday
Oh,
as the dog that passed, and he has so many of the same characteristics. So I think if we pay attention, we listen, we set intentions, magic can happen. So I think that's what the book is about. And one of the things people loved about the book was that at the end of each chapter, I have questions for people to reflect on, to help bring out, to help reflect on their own life, their own past, and their own ancestors. Now, the important thing to remember is that ancestors are not only relatives. They could be places, or they could be mentors that we've, have really changed our lives. Because sometimes people think, oh, well, I'm adopted, I don't know who my ancestors are. But that's not necessarily a problem. That's just, it's just another dimension.
yeah. Oh, that's a really great way of putting it that way, because what I think about when you said that was energy, and like a place can have some energy to it,
Yeah.
even though there might not be an ancestral connection, like from a person necessarily. Ooh, I
Right.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when I went to Hawaii many years ago, because I love Hawaii, and there was something about it that was like it was pulling me. And I met a shaman there, and she said, oh, well, you were Hawaiian in your past life. I went, oh, one of your past lives. She said you had many past lives. And then she took me down to the Eow, I think it was called the Eow Mountains at the time. And she's like, this is where your ancestors are from. Your grandfather, great grandfather had an herb farm here. I'm like, okay. And as soon as I walked down the hill to the river in the middle of the forest, I started crying like I'd never cried before. So there was a connection that our body remembers. My body remembered. I didn't remember the story, but my body remembered something in that spot. So I'm a real big believer that we're all connected.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh.
Fascinating.
The things you keep saying are resonating because we vacationed here on Hilton Head Island. I live on
Oh,
Hilton
you
Head
live on
Island
Hilton
now.
Head. You're so lucky.
Oh yes, thank you, thank you. Well, we came to Paradise for 20 years, brought our kids down, and we would vacation every year, and I loved it. It was so peaceful and beautiful. But the very first time we had gotten a postcard in the mail from, I don't know, Marriott, one of the timeshares. Hey, come down and stay for 3 nights, and we'll go through this timeshare presentation, and you can stay for free.
Yeah.
And so we were like, where the heck is Hilton Head? This is before, like you had the map on your phone. And so we did. And I'm not kidding you. When we were coming over the bridge for the first time, and I'm here, and we have at the time our 2 little boys in the back seat. And I looked out the window, and as we hit the island, I turned to my then husband and I said, I don't know how to tell you this, but this feels like home.
Oh,
And I just felt like I was coming home. And it was so, I'd never been to the place. I hadn't really seen pictures of it, anything, but I knew it. And now here I am 20 something odd years later, and I call it home, and it's home. And it was like my past self knew my future self. Yeah.
your body remembered something.
Yeah.
So interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
So
Oh, for
interesting.
sure. Very
Yeah,
fascinating.
and that's just something similar happened to me when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2001. We were living in Florida at the time, and I really didn't want to get any surgery or treatment there. So I researched the best doctor, and he was in Los Angeles. So we went and I had surgery there, and we visited a cousin in Santa Barbara, north of Los Angeles. And as soon as we drove, because there's a long stretch of ocean before you actually get to the city of Santa Barbara, we drove on the stretch of ocean, and it felt so familiar. I'm like, I know that, and I'd never been there before. I know this place. My body was just like, my shoulders relaxed, my headache went away, and I suddenly felt, and we ended up moving here a few years later. It's very expensive, so we had to go make some more money. But yeah, so my body remembered. I must have been here in some other life too. So it's such a beautiful feeling, and how lucky we are to have landed in places that make us feel so good, right?
Oh, yes, for sure. And it
Yeah.
is amazing because you're right. It just kind of, there's something that just comes alive, a tingle or a something. I don't know that just, our senses are like, oh, I remember this, or oh, this is where we're supposed to be. Yeah,
This is where we're supposed to be. Exactly right. Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So now, do you work with others? Do you help others in writing and in creating their own, or I guess getting in touch with their own truths and sharing their stories?
I do. I teach a lot of workshops. My website is dianaraab.com. And I teach at the Santa Barbara Writers Conference, and I teach, various workshops when I'm called to. I'm teaching for the Seattle study group coming up, and I teach at the local libraries. I've done some Zoom calls with libraries across the country during COVID. I do. I love helping people find their story, because I think we all have stories. It's just which one are you going to write? That's sometimes a challenge for people.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I know.
You
I
are
think I told you
teaching.
last time we chatted, I've been writing my memoir for 10 years. And so it's been a work in progress. And I think with my mom passing in March on my birthday, which it was such a gift in a way, that not her death, but she passed on my birthday. Like it was just, there's this connection, this extra connection now. But she gave that final stamp of approval and said, it's time. It's time to put it
Yeah.
out there because it's going to contain some of our ugly truths. And so that was, yeah, just such a gift from her as she left this world.
Yes, it's true. And again, I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your mother. I know a little bit about the story. And so, yeah, I think it, like you said, it's very important to get down. And that's one of the things I teach is get down to your emotional truth. It's very easy to reminisce and to talk about stories and traveling and, family trips and experiences you've had together. But it's not so much what you did, but how did it affect you? How did it make you the person you are? And why, how were you influenced? How did you grow from it? And that's what I encourage in my writing workshops is to get down to the truth of the story, not
Right.
just being journalistic and reporting it. Because we
Yeah.
all can go through the same experience, but come out the other end totally different. They've done so many studies on people going through war, and some people, my dad was a Holocaust survivor, and he was like so happy to be alive. But his brother was and he just said, no religion in my life ever, because religion separates people, it makes wars. But his brother, who went through the same experience, became extremely religious. Oh, I lost my parents, I lost this, and I'm just going to be very religious. So they just went totally different routes. And that's the beauty of human nature. We all react differently.
Right. That's why I went back and got my degree in psychology, because I had been through two horrific bank robberies. One, a gun was held to my head. My coworker was stabbed 3 times with a hunting knife. They didn't catch them. And then 3 months later, they would come back to our main office where I had just transferred. Only this time, the perpetrator who had held the gun to my head would pull the trigger and murder my coworker. So I started experiencing severe panic attacks, horrific panic attacks, and really my mental health, I really struggled with depression, anxiety. And my mom, who had also been a banker, went through two horrific bank robberies, had a gun held to her head. So very, very similar. But she was just took it as, oh, well, whatever, life goes on, keep partying with my friends and having fun and life and just being, her jokester self. And I sat there so fascinated, like, did, how do we have these very similar experiences and we're both handling it in such completely different ways? So I truly went back to school and got my degree in psychology just to learn,
Right.
like,
What did you?
how does this happen? And so, yeah, to me, it is fascinating. But now I understand
Yeah.
trauma impact, the impact of my early childhood trauma and the way my brain processed things, as well as how I was storing that trauma. So, yeah, it is, you're right. It is so very fascinating how two people can go through the same thing and come out completely different way of
Yeah.
handling it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I know in your book that released yesterday, Hummingbird, do you have prompts in the book that guide people, like journaling prompts?
I do. I call them, at the end of each chapter, there's 5 of them. There's, I think, 13 or 14 chapters. At the end of each chapter, I have 5 prompts, but I also call them reflection questions or prompts, because some people, my brother-in-law who just passed, I was always encouraging him to write his memoir. And he says, oh, Diana, I don't really write, but I love talking. I said, well, then just talk it into a tape recorder. So some people are better at talking. And so unfortunately, he never did it. But that's why I call them reflection prompts. If you want, they could be discussion prompts as opposed to writing. But of course, as a writer, I always encourage people to write.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Just to
Well,
bring
and
out, to be a little nostalgic. And also, as a grandmother now of 6, I really feel it's my role to continue my legacy. And I want my grandchildren to know what their family's been through, and the importance of following their passions, following their hearts. And those are the messages the Hummingbird brought me is, listen to your heart, follow your intuition. And that was something that, that has helped me survive through many, many physical and mental traumas, for sure.
yeah, I thanks for clarifying that
And
too.
looking at the light too, it's like I gave my first reading on the weekend, and that's one thing I talked a lot about is there's a lot of darkness in the world right now, but there's also a lot of light, and human nature somehow goes to the darkness easier. But I think we need to focus more on the light in
Amen.
people
Yes.
and in the universe. There's magic happening. It's just we forget it. We forget to
Yeah.
honor it.
Right. I truly believe that the pandemic has brought forth a big shift in people realizing, oh, wait a minute, there's this beautiful part of human nature. We're just inundated with the negativity and the darkness so much. But I personally just started to witness so many people rising up and starting to connect with that light and that goodness. And I hope it continues, because yeah, we need it.
Yeah, some people have a hard time, like if they're not very spiritual, I have a hard time understanding what do you mean by the light? And I guess another way of saying it is just being positive thinking, don't you think? It's kind of like just be more positive as opposed to the negative. I think that's another way of explaining the light.
Yes. Oh, most definitely. I know. Well, when I started to shift away, I don't have panic attacks anymore. I don't experience anxiety on that severe level. I mean, obviously I'm human, so I have moments, but
Sure.
it was shifting my mindset to one of positivity and gratitude, that I was able to make my way into what I literally say often on this show and to other people is, finding my way out of the darkness and into the light. I mean, I talk about it because to me, that's what it felt like, was moving into this place of joy and peace, even amidst the chaos. I mean, life still happens, my last year with all the deaths that occurred, but still able to stay in this place of joy and peace.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
The only way to survive, I think, to me,
yeah.
it's a survival mechanism. It's otherwise. Yes. And, also I talk a lot about rituals, the importance of rituals, whether it's, going for a walk every morning, going for, meditation, whatever it is that brings you joy, searching for that. And that also helps bring out the light.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Get bogged down,
Yeah. So now you have, 13 other books besides this one. And are they all memoir related, or are there guides? What is the general, I guess I don't want to say gist, but yeah,
the genre, maybe the
genre. That's it. Thank you.
That's okay. Well, my background is so diverse. I've had, I used to be director of nursing chronic care hospital. I had a degree in health. I have a degree in psychology. I have an MFA. But my whole path has all been about healing. So all my books have some kind of healing component, but they are primarily memoir and poetry. Those are my two favorite genres. So I'd say about half and half. My last book, Writing for Bliss, was all about helping people write their stories, whether it's a memoir or essay. And that was more of a how-to book. I think that was the only one that was really, quote unquote, a how-to. There's a little bit of how-to in the current one, Hummingbird Messages from My Ancestors, in that there are writing prompts. So those are my genres of choice. I did a couple of anthologies. I did one called Writers on the Edge, which is a compilation of writers who've struggled with addiction, and they each wrote an essay. Then I did another one called Writers in Their Notebooks, writers who journal, and how the journal has helped them over the years in their writing practice. So editing an essay is kind of like having a lot of children. Editing an anthology I will not do that again. It's so hard. Just corralling in 15 writers and making deadlines. It was a lot of work. I think it was more work than writing a book.
Yes. Well,
it was rewarding, but a lot of work.
So funny you should say that, because on the 25th, so in 9 days from today, I am part of a collaborative book project that's launching. And I was one of the writers, but speaking to the lead author who, was bringing all of this together, and yes, talking to her about the process. And she was like, I need a really long nap after all of this is done, because
yes. Yeah, I bet she does. Yeah. By the way, I wanted to tell you, I love the name of your podcast, The Healing Places. So suddenly whenever I see it or read it and your picture on your, emails, when my shoulders just relax. There's something very, very special. I love that.
No, thank you. Well, and it's so.
How did you come up with that?
Yeah, that's funny because I was working in a mental health agency. Like I said, my degree is psychology, and I was, gosh, I want to say late 40s, maybe just turned 50, very somewhere in that range. And one of my therapist friends, someone that just instantly became a soul sister, was in her late 20s. And so we hung out all the time and had such a blast together. And she had said to me, Teri, we totally need to start a podcast. And I was like, awesome. What's a podcast? Because I had never listened to one. I didn't know what a podcast was. And so she and I started this up together, and we started it in kind of a really super funny. We were talking about angels and aliens, but also talking about anxiety and depression. Like we were just making it just this whatever we wanted to talk about. And we would literally sit in my backyard around a fire pit. So it was like terrible recordings, like nothing professional. We didn't have a good microphone. So it was just fun. Yeah. And we started it and just kind of collaborated together. And since both of us were working with kids, in the healing arena, we came up with the Healing Place. It's just a place for people to gather for healing tidbits.
I love it. No, it's so simple. I love the simplicity and wisdom in it. It's not a lot of words, but it says everything that it is, which is not an easy thing to do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, as you spoke and said, all of your work is, the genre is really, it's healing related. And I so speak to that because my newsletter is called the Hope for Healing newsletter. I mean, healing is just such an integral part of what I call my soul work and the work that I do as well. So thank you. That was a heart hug. So how are we doing on time? Oh my gosh, we have 2 minutes left. So I certainly wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about or address anything, or leave listeners with maybe something, a prompt or something they can do along their journey.
Sure. The book that we've been talking about is called Hummingbird Messages from, it's a long title, Hummingbird Messages from My Ancestors, a memoir with reflection and writing prompts. And so hopefully people that read it will be helped to get in touch with their own ancestors. And, I talk a lot about following your passion. I talk a lot about, trauma and intergenerational trauma and how we carry memories in our souls and in our bodies, and they come forth in the most unusual ways. So if I'm to leave the listeners with a prompt, I would say, how would you like to honor your ancestors in the way that you're living your life? Yeah, I think that would be a good one. If that doesn't resonate, how about, what ancestor, have you ever connected with your ancestors, and in what way do they present themselves? Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. I'm going to go journal today. I'm going to answer all those.
Good. Good.
I love it. Oh my God.
Girl.
Well, so how do folks connect with you? Where do they find you?
So I have a website, and it's Diana, DIANARAAB.com. And there's a lot of information on the website. It's all the articles and poems I've published, also events coming up. I also have a monthly newsletter, and you can sign up for it on my website. And the newsletter is full of all kinds of tidbits, from journaling prompts to book recommendations, and to appearances. And so, and it all has to do with healing and making yourself the best possible person ever.
Oh, well,
I'm a seeker. I've been a seeker my whole life. So I try to, share that knowledge with my people, my tribe, as they call it.
I've not heard seeker before. So you're a seeker of knowledge, a seeker of wisdom and answers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be better.
Yeah, I like that. All right. That's a new word for me. I'm resonating with that word. Thank you.
I think that's you too.
I know. I was just going to say, I'm a seeker. I so am. Oh my God. Well, and I think that's why I love
that should be the name of my podcast.
Oh yeah, that would be great. The Seeker's Place.
The Seeker's Place. The Seeker's Place meets the Healing Place.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's just, as always, it's been a joy. Thank you for just honoring me with being here on the show and sharing with my audience. It's just been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teri. Lovely. Happy New Year.
Oh, you too. Thank you. All right, everyone, thanks for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. Remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to thank you again for being a part of this healing space and my hashtag Hope for Healing journey. Thank you for sharing, liking, inviting others to join, listening in. You've really helped this show blossom. It has now been downloaded in 136 countries and is in the top 2% globally out of 3.2 million shows, which is just amazing. And it's all because of you and your tuning in and inviting others and sharing and liking and loving. And your reviews on Apple really help too. My goal is to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of the year. And I am closing in on that. So if you are listening in on Apple or Apple Podcasts, please go and rate the show and leave a review if you absolutely love it. And I would be most appreciative. Also, if you would like to receive my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, please be sure to go to teriwellbrock.com. It's Teri, just one R, WELLBROCK.com. And I have a gift to send you for signing up for that monthly Hope for Healing newsletter. Plus, there are many other resources listed on that page, including a resource library. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.